Modern Horizons is bringing something new to the table. Or, I guess, to their boosters. You get to decide what you put on your table. It's not my problem. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here for another day of Modern Horizons set reviewage. We have a number of cards to talk about, but before we talk about the cards themselves, I want to talk about something different that's included in these booster packs. Now, we've seen them try different ideas with different expansions where it's like the master sets had a foil in every single pack. Some other sets have little gimmicks where it's like, go check it out, we've got flip cards or all these kind of things. But in terms of using extra slots in the booster pack, normally what you would have is tokens and lands. Like your basic lands, your tokens, just kind of usually the most throwaway part of any booster pack. Now granted, with this pack, you're not going to be throwing away your full art snow lands. These aren't your everyday run-of-the-mill basics. But that's not what we're here to discuss. That's old news. What's fairly new news are the other things that are being inserted inside of these booster packs. I don't know if you guys have heard about this yet, but Modern Horizons will not have a foil in every pack. And I'm bringing that up here because I know there have been a number of people who come to my live streams and are like, wait, what's going on? There's no foils in every pack? It's like, nope, this is just like any other set. Randomization of foils is regular. So yeah, there's still foils, but you're not getting one in every pack. But apparently what you will get in every pack, as far as it's been explained to me, is an art insert token-ish kind of card. It's definitely not a token because you don't actually use it as a token. Although I suppose if it did have the artwork of a creature on it, you might use it as a token depending on what it is. Like maybe if there's a goblin piece of artwork. But there's supposed to be 54 pieces of artwork from Modern Horizons that were selected out to get kind of a full card treatment. I'll put it up here on the screen. This is the mocks. We talked about the mocks in a previous video in this series, but this is the mocks here. And you can see it's basically a magic card just rotated on its side like this, and it has the artwork of a particular card from the set. Now, this also may have a blurb about the card on the back of it, but overall, it's just a piece of artwork. It's got no play value, and it's taking up a slot in the pack. And I feel like they were included in an attempt to justify the more expensive nature of the set. Now, for me, that's not really something that adds enough value to be considered a reason to increase the prices. I'm going on record saying that I think that Modern Horizons is overpriced and it's not delivering on enough value. And this art insert, while mildly interesting as something to collect, hey, let's get a slightly bigger version of the artwork you would get on a card, it has zero play value. And as a result, it's hard to feel like it's really bringing much of worth to the table when it doesn't cost Wizards that much to print these sort of cards. So for me, it's interesting that they've included it, but definitely not justification for any kind of price increase. Now, this is going to be a very subjective thing because, for example, they did the pro cards where it was like, here's all these different pro players, and they're like, hey, and smiling and stuff, and it had their records and a little blurb about them. And some people really liked them, but most people didn't care about them, right? So you may be somebody who likes these. I like the art, but for me, it's like you're going to sell me booster packs that cost double the price. You're going to include these. That's a miss me with this one. So I just wanted to cover that was going to be included in the booster pack and that you will not be getting a foil in every booster pack. Now let's talk about some of the cards you can get in booster packs, starting out with a reprint from olden days, Altar of Dementia. 2 colorless, it is an artifact that allows you to sacrifice a creature. Target player puts a number of cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power from the top of their library into their graveyard. It's not that you will go mad, it's that you will beg for madness. Volrath. Overall, this card screams, I'm combo-licious. Is it the best combo? I mean, I don't know. Even a combo that allows you to sack a creature. Like, if you can create an infinite amount of creatures to mill your opponent's deck, you could also just take care of them with some kind of sack outlet that allows you to deal damage to your opponent along the lines of something like Goblin Bombardment, although I am aware that Goblin Bombardment is not currently a modern card. It's just the example of a type of card that exists where you can go, okay, I don't really feel the need to use like mill to take you out. I mean, back in the day when this came out, I looked at it and I was like, this is all right. I mean, I still preferred my millstones back in the day because 2 mana to put out, 2 and tap them, and they just grind away. You don't have to sack any creatures. But it is what it is. It's combo-licious. It doesn't feel like this is something that's going to make a big splash in Modern. If you're able to create infinite creatures, you're probably doing other things. But who knows? Maybe this will find some bizarre home that I'm not foreseeing. Modern keeps growing with the number of cards available. It doesn't, at least, I'll give it this. At least it doesn't feel like some of the chaff, some of the absolute forgettable garbage that they have put into this set. And I will say what I've said before, they should have marketed the set as what they're saying it is now. They should have marketed it as the second time spiral. I think they didn't because it would have been a lot harder to try and go, why is it, well, like to justify the price. Why does this cost so much? This is just another, this is just another time spiral. But either way, let's take a look at the artwork on this one. The artwork shows the altar. You can see on the side what looks like Phyrexian etchings. It's got a macabre feel to it. You can actually see, if you take a look, you've got your stone tablet essentially that they lay on, but then what's propping it up are a bunch of bones. You may not notice that at first if you just look at the part that's connecting underneath there, but if you look off to the sides, you can actually see there's a ton of bones and skulls inset into it as well. So yeah, this is pretty cool as an altar. It looks pretty amazing as an altar. And I mean, as a rare, it's okay, but it does feel a bit underwhelming, but not like, okay, this is absolute garbage, get on out of here. We will talk about some more powerful, some way more powerful artifacts in this video. Next up, we have got Battle Screech. Now, here's the thing about Battle Screech. Currently, we only have a foreign version of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to meld the foreign artwork onto an English copy of this card so you can see them together. So this is just a mock-up using the Vintage Masters printing of Battle Screech with the overlay of the artwork that you will be getting inside of Modern Horizons. So Battle Screech is 2 white and 2 colorless. It's a sorcery. Put 2 1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield, and it's got flashback. Tap 3 untapped white creatures you control. So you get to cast it twice, and the first casting of it creates 2 birds that will help with the second casting of it, which is, it's kind of fun. But again, the set is called Modern Horizons. They made a big deal about bringing cards into Modern, so it feels to me like when viewed through the lens of Modern, Lingering Souls feels stronger. It's only 3 mana to cast it originally, and the flashback just requires a couple of mana as opposed to having 3 creatures and having the creatures stick around on the board. If they wipe out the first set of birds that you get with your Battle Screech, it's a lot harder to get to the point where you're going to be able to flashback and create a bigger squad. So Lingering Souls really gives me lingering doubts about this card. The artwork is pretty sweet though. I do like the artwork. You can see just, you've got this woman going, fly birdies, fly, and they're going off in different directions. It almost looks like, are they going in different directions? Oh no. No, I guess they're headed in the same direction. You've got one coming right at you and another one, I'm going to kind of circle in. I mean, there's a lot of magic going on around the woman, which is a little bit confusing where you go, well, the focus should just be like the birds mainly? Why is this? But I mean, at the same time, they're being summoned up. This definitely feels like repurposed artwork. I find the artwork to be genuinely really appealing. I like things that are really colorful. And you have her back here doing the YMCA with rainbow colors flying all over. So that's pretty cool. The card itself, honestly, as an uncommon, this was printed as a common multiple times. Making this an uncommon makes it feel worse, because then, at least as a common, it's a little harder to compare it to Lingering Souls. But once you make it uncommon, the comparison to Lingering Souls becomes far more evident. And it's just like, I don't know, boys. Yeah, like, bringing this into Modern, not that big a deal. They should have done something different, in my opinion, with this one. Moving on, we have a card that is on the opposite end of the spectrum, where I go, wow, All right, let me walk you through, well, before I even show you this card, let me walk you through the previous iterations so you can end up where I end up. Because we're about to talk about a sliver and the change in sliver power levels, okay? You start out with winged sliver, or winged sliver, if you want to be a fancy boy. So 1 blue, 1 colorless, and it's a 1/1 flying sliver that gives all slivers flying. It's like, okay, all right, 2 mana to give all creatures flying. I feel you. It's almost like a levitation sliver. I feel you on that. That's fine. Winged sliver, they all grow wings and lift up into the air. Well, that was the first iteration. Then they decided, you know what? We can do better than this. We can do better than this. And this was around the time of the new sliver renaissance, where they decided, you know what? Instead of having the traditional sliver look, where they have very like pointed insectile heads and a little stabbing pronger, instead of having that, we're going to go ahead and make them more humanoid, and we're going to, but more importantly, we're going to change how slivers work fundamentally, in that from now on, slivers will only affect your side of the battlefield. Now, I feel like this was a great choice because it's a feel-bad moment when you have to share with your opponent. I don't want to make you stronger in the process of trying to make me stronger. That doesn't feel nearly as good. This was a problem back in the day with cards like Crusade, where for 2 white mana, all white creatures get +1/+1. So sure, it's a great enchantment if you're not facing off against another white deck, but as soon as you do, it becomes kind of a feel-bad moment. And the same thing would go for slivers, where you put out slivers and be like, I don't want you to have my abilities. And if slivers are hive mind style creatures, and I can still like, okay, the idea behind slivers are supposed to be, they're like a hive mind insect creature, but you can kind of take over their will and force them to serve you. Well, if you can do that, how can you not override the part that makes them communal to the same degree and go, those are other, they are not part of our tribe, this is our sliver tribe, do not share your bonuses with those kind of thing. Don't treat them as if they are your kindred, right? And so from my mentality, it's like, well, of course planeswalkers at the insane level of power they're at could be like, no, just on this side. You know, we're a hive, we're buddies, so just for us. So that change made sense to me. And so they decided not only were they going to one-up winged sliver by going, screw it, we're just giving flying to our side. We're going to make it even cheaper. So for less mana, you get a Gale Rider sliver. 1 blue for a Gale Rider sliver. Now, admittedly, the Gale Rider sliver artwork is weird. It doesn't have the same kind of humanoid feel, but I think that's because you have, like, his arms have been transformed into wings, but you can see it had, like, long person-like hair. They were weird, honestly. Them changing the slivers into humanoids was weird, but I think they did that so there would be a visual difference between slivers that cared about every sliver and slivers that only cared about slivers on your side. But either way, the point remains that for 1 mana, all just your slivers get flying. Now, I bet you're wondering, wait a minute, Gale Rider sliver clearly is in Modern Horizons, so where do we go from here? How do you get more insane than that? Well, you make the Sky Knight Legionnaire sliver, and that is the Cloud Shredder sliver. One right. This card is so right that it makes me say 1 right. So 1 white, 1 red for a 1/1, and sliver creatures you control have flying and haste for 1 white and 1 red. That's insane. Heart Sliver is a red and a colorless to give all slivers haste. So that's 2 mana to give all slivers haste. Winged Slivers, 2 mana to give all creatures flying. Gale Rider is a step up, obviously. But Cloud Shredder is insane. There's a reason this sliver is rare. And honestly, this is going to be a sliver that a lot of people want to get their hands on. Giving haste and flying. Oh, by the way, they can attack right away. And you better not be on the ground, son, or I'm going to send flying insects at you. Here they come. They're going to put their seeds, their little insect babies in your brain. It's an intense card. The flavor text says, forks-tailed rustled, talons clicked. A lone sliver streaked overhead like jagged lightning, and the hive thundered. This is an intense card. And you can see the artwork. This thing looks menacing. It is just bearing down. It looks really unpleasant. And the way that it's like sharp little pointed beak is combining up with its crazy stinger underneath to create like a pincher kind of effect. It just makes it feel, it's got a real sense of imminent danger. Like it's about to impale you 2 times, just bang, bang. I mean, this could have, like, if they had decided to call this a double strike, I would have worked with that as well. But I mean, double strike and flying, that sliver probably would have been pretty expensive. But either way, this is a clear push of the power level of slivers, because there are a range of different power levels of slivers. There's a bunch of jank slivers from like the plane shift block. No, it's the time spiral block, sorry. Well, that's why we're seeing so many slivers as well, because this is the whole time spiral set. But this, the Cloud Shredder is insane. This card is insane. This is going to be, I think that so far, at least from what we've seen, this and the first sliver, that 5 casting cost 7/7 Cascade one, are going to be the most sought after slivers, because this gives 2 really strong abilities melded together. This one blew me back. I was like, whoa, all right. Next up, we've got Prepare to be Underwhelmed. Force of Rage. This is the red card that is finishing out the Force cycle. The Force cycles are the spells that you can cast on your opponent's turns by removing a card from your hand. Interesting how it has both a limitation and a bonus, where it's like the bonus is limited. You can only do it on your opponent's turn. If you want to cast it on your turn, you have to pay full cost. So, 2 red and a colorless. It's an instant. If it's not your turn, you may exile a red card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Create 2 3/1 red elemental creature tokens with trample and haste. Sacrifice those tokens at the beginning of your next upkeep. So there's no way to play this on your opponent's turn and have it come to your turn and actually be able to attack with the creatures. You have to decide whether you want to pay the mana yourself and put these 2 out and have it come in as almost like a pseudo-ish ball lightning, where you have 6 points of trample barreling down at your opponent, but they're going to go away before you can attack with them again. Or you play it on your opponent's turn and you've got surprise blockers, surprise fire. So, I mean, it's underwhelming. It genuinely is. This doesn't feel massively powerful. It feels okay. It feels like it's all right. And compared to some of the other cards in the cycle, that's really how I felt when I read it. I went, okay. The artwork's pretty funky though. The artwork shows, wait a minute, is that a Beneless shield? Is this, yeah, that's a Beneless shield. This is probably repurposed artwork from Dominaria. You can see the Beneless stained glass shield as this soldier is fighting off against 2 red flame elementals. In all honesty, I complain when they don't repurpose the art properly. They did a great job here. You've got 2 3/1 tokens. You've got them on either side with like a pincher attack. It gives it that feel of they just surprise out of nowhere. Surprise! And they're just messing up some kind of soldier. I like it. I like this artwork. I mean, I'm also a fan of the stained glass. So I like seeing the stained glass from behind, but because the fire elemental's on the other side, you can see the stained glass lit up, because without a source of light on the other side, that would probably be pretty dark, because this character is in a dark and shadowy and smoky environment. And I like little touches and attention to detail where it's like, look, if there was a flame elemental over here, the light's going to come through the shield in a certain way and show like that. And I like that the elemental that's closer to us up on the rock, you can see all the little sparks coming off of it like you would a campfire. That's some really nice flavor, in all honesty. So it wins on tying the card together. The whole card ties together very, very nicely, but it loses in the power level aspect where I just go, miss me with that one. It may turn out to be wrong. Who knows? Maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe this would be Berserk in Modern, but it just doesn't feel powerful enough. Next up, we've got a fun, silly little card, Goat Napper. All right, so this is 1 red, 2 colorless for a strictly better Act of Treason. It's just straight up better than an Act of Treason. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. If that creature's a goat, it also gets +3/+0 until end of turn. And the flavor text says, the steering horns ain't steering. And you can see a goblin on this goat going, come on, Billy! Come on, Billy Goat, go where I say. Let me steer you, you little punk. It's this is cute. I honestly like this artwork. I like the fact that it looks like the goats have busted through a fence at this point, and the goblin has no control. He's coming along as an unwilling rider. This to me is set in the world of Lorwyn. That's where this concept comes from. For those of you who don't know, there was a goat napper in the original Lorwyn block, and no, there wasn't goats there. Just like this set, Lorwyn had changelings. So it was a nod to the whole, well, you can snag a changeling with it kind of thing, which is, it's kind of fun. The whole concept behind it is fun. And I liked the original goat napper where it talked about stealing these smaller goats were just practice for stealing a cloud giant's goat. I like that. I like, because the world of Lorwyn was a very lighthearted and playful kind of world where it was like, you know, like goblins will come by and they'll like go, shake their fisty and steal your goat or steal your pie off your shelf. They're not there to like your family in the middle of the night. You know, like that was the dark side when Lorwyn switched to nighttime, the 300 years of night. But this speaks to that whole daytime environment. And while I didn't like the red spell that mentioned cowards, because it does affect changelings, but I didn't really like that. But I do like this as a nod to the original goat napper. So it's a perfectly serviceable card. After that, we've got Lesser Masticore. 2 colorless for a 2/2. As an additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card. Pay 4 mana, Lesser Masticore deals 1 damage to target creature, and it has Persist. So when the creature goes to the graveyard, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a -1/-1 counter on it. So you get to use this thing twice, and it's only as an additional cost to cast a spell you have to discard a card. So when it returns, you don't have to discard another card. Now, the interesting thing to note about this is it most assuredly is a Lesser Masticore, because a Masticore is an old school artifact card from the Urza's block that costs 4 mana to put out. It's a 4/4, and it has the ability pay 2 to do 1 damage to a target creature, but you had to keep feeding cards to it. You had to keep discarding. So in this case, you only have to discard once, but the casting cost and the ability activation have been reversed. So instead of casting 4 and 2 to activate, this costs 2 to put out and 4 to activate. So it's obviously weaker, but it's meant to be. It's a Lesser Masticore, and when you look at the artwork, it looks like the Masticore. We've had a number of Masticores in Magic, things like the Razormane Masticore, so this feels like it fits into it. Even as a Lesser Masticore, this would be terrifying to encounter on some dark alley street like it's depicted here, because it's got that crazy mechanical stinger tail. The fact that even when you bludgeon it down, it would actually reassemble itself to a degree. It's not going to come back as good as it was, but it will reassemble itself to a degree. It's not strong enough for Modern, in my opinion, at all. Not really, but it's definitely a funky card. I mean, it's if you play a Masticore theme deck, maybe? It's interesting from a nostalgia perspective, from a power perspective, underwhelming, and from a flavor perspective, card is tied together nicely. This artwork was clearly always meant to be a Masticore. So even if this artwork is repurposed from a previous card they didn't make, it fits perfectly. So I'm totally fine with that. Now, my friends, let us move on to the dirty, the goodness. When I say we're going to talk about some good artifacts, we are, because the sword cycle continues. For those of you who know the old school cards, you know, Sword of Light and Shadow, things of that nature, these swords all follow a pattern. There's 3 to put out, they're 2 to equip, they have protection from 2 different colors, and they have 2 abilities that trigger on the creature hitting a player while equipped with the sword. So Sword of Sinew Steel is no different. This is one that gives protection from black and red and gives +2/+2. They all give +2/+2 and 2 types of protection. So the equipped creature that has this sword gets +2/+2, protection from black and red, and those are really strong removal colors. So having this protection from those colors is very nice. Now, whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, destroy up to 1 target planeswalker and up to 1 target artifact. This feels half decently powerful. I think they're trying to tone down the swords to a degree because a whole bunch of these swords exist, and there was a way back in the day, well, not way back in the day, but a number of years ago, there was Cawblade, where people played with a whole bunch of swords strapped on a little bird that would fly in the air and smash, and just overwhelm with all the advantage inherent in all these sword hits. So I think they're trying to walk the line and not make something too powerful, and this is something that if you can repeat the effect over and over, if they don't have a bunch of planeswalkers or artifacts to destroy, it's not really going to make that much of a difference. What's interesting to note is target planeswalkers can be destroyed through combat damage fairly easily, so that's not that big a deal. But this does give artifact destruction to colors that don't normally have easy access to it. Black, I'm looking at you. So black normally can't destroy artifacts very easily unless you go all the way back to like the days of Gate to Phyrexia. And that's, I mean, come on, how many people have that kind of stuff? And that obviously isn't applicable in Modern. So this to me actually feels like the more powerful of the two swords that we're going to look at today. The artwork looks like this was originally, I think they might have originally intended to put these swords into the Tarkir block. Because with the banners and pennants and the dragons wheeling over this stormy sky, it totally feels to me like this is specifically keen, like not keen, keyed in to the cons block. But honestly, this is a really powerful card. Not quite on the level of other swords, mostly, but still fairly potent. The next sword we're going to talk about is a little less powerful feeling. This is Sword of Truth and Justice, same casting cost, same equip as the previous one. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from white and blue. So this is the sword of get out of here control, chug it control. Now, whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, then proliferate. So, unlike the previous sword, you will always get to use this sword's ability when it hits, because you, at the very least, you'll be able to put a +1/+1 counter on the creature that's holding the sword, and then proliferate. It's also interesting to note that when it adds a +1/+1 counter, it doesn't target. So you don't have to worry about your opponent being able to wait and in response to the trigger, destroy the creature you're going to put the counter on. He has to play destruction abilities before then on the stack, and then when the trigger resolves, you're going to get to add the counter and then proliferate. So really you're going to get to beef a creature by at least 2 and grow planeswalkers or other creatures you have as well. So it's not weak by any means. This is a powerful card. These two swords feel like they belong in Modern, in all honesty. And again, when we look at this artwork, it looks like another artwork keyed specifically to the cons block. Now, the sword artwork, this isn't repurposed artwork in terms of they meant to make this a different sword. You can tell from the artwork that they intended these to be, hey, look, okay, these are new swords in the cycle because of the colors of the blades. I mean, you might be able to say something different with this sword and go, I don't know, maybe that's a Sword of Fire and Ice redone. But when you go back and you look at the artwork on the Sword of Sinew Steel, it's clearly black and red. So I feel like these swords were meant to originally come out in the cons block, and for some reason Wizards held back and said, you know what, we're not going to do it. Maybe they had originally intended to start masterpieces earlier. Maybe these were just going to be mythics in the set, but for some reason Wizards decided to hold them back, maybe as just fuel for future Modern sets like this specific scenario. But unlike other repurposed artwork, this is originally artwork designed for these cards. They've just shown up at a different time than they would have. Because again, this is the cons. You can see the rocky outcroppings all popping up with a dragon flying around in the back. So that covers all of the spoilers that we've seen, the swords being the most powerful things from the day, the art cards being the most underwhelming thing out of everything we've talked about. Even the cards that are jank, at least are Magic cards you can play with. I don't see these art inserts being a nice thing unless they included them in a regularly priced set. That's my opinion. So you guys can let me know what you think about all that. We're gonna roll the golden scroll. These are the people who have my back on Patreon or through channel membership. Thanks very much for supporting my channel. Thank you everyone for coming and hanging out with me. We'll get back together for some more goodness tomorrow. But for now, I'm history, baby.